What is the smuttiest thing you've done? Was at a bar in New York, met a gal that was way out of my league. An ex of mine was there and saw us as well. I took this gal home, hooked up, and spent the night, and I found out that she was a flight attendant and had a flight in a few hours. She talked me into booking a ticket on her flight to LAX. The only time I've ever turned down a free upgrade. She slipped me a bunch of snacks and booze, and the woman next to me was all, "I think she's flirting with you." When we got there, we went out with a couple others from the flight crew, and found out that I was flying back with another gal from the group. Spent the night with the gal that I came out with, and flew back the next day. Spent the flight back flirting a bit, and found out it was her time staying in Philadelphia, so I showed her around, and we hooked up as well. My ex was so jealous. She texted me, and we hooked up after I got back. Somehow, I lucked into 3 hookups with 3 women in one trip to a bar. This was one of the 2 times in my life that going to a bar actually got me laid. You ever think to yourself, well, this is the best week of my life? I had a similar situation, nowhere near that level though, for about a week 5 years ago. And I was thinking about that this whole time. Savored every second of it. And yep, nothing since has come close. And that's okay. I got with my best friend in the school washroom. We were just friends. I don't know what happened. I just kind of flirted with her, and she responded well. Then made a sexual joke on her, and she responded well. And even made a sexual comment on me. One thing led to another, and we ended up kissing. We then went to a washroom, which was almost always empty, and went at it. We were sweating like crazy, and the washroom definitely smelled like sex. But it was super hot, and it was the best action I've had to date. But our friendship got ruined. It was never really the same after that, and now we rarely speak. Met up with my husband a few times on his work route, and did it in the back of my car. He stocked for Pepsi. He worked 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I worked 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. We had one day off together every 3 weeks. He texted me one morning saying that he was in the mood, and he kept texting me about it. So of course, I was now also in the mood. Our next day off together was 2 weeks out. So I met up with him at one of his stops, parked as out of sight as possible, and we climbed into the back of my Explorer. Then did it again a few hours later. And again an hour after that. I used to get with my coworker during lunch break at my first job. She was in her mid-30s cheating on her incarcerated husband, and I was 18, fresh out of high school. Hopefully he was in for tax fraud, not serial killing his wife's paramours. I acted as a beard for a lesbian friend to help her deal with some very uptight parents. Sent some news to her so she could accidentally get some gossip started by her sister, and gave her a t-shirt and a pair of boxers. They were some chill friends. I would do it again. I was slutty for a purpose. When I was in the army, I had a lesbian friend that I would go bar hopping with. We were stationed in Hawaii and would regularly troll the resort clubs for tourist girls. It was a very productive friendship, and she was a very effective wing person. I went to a bar with a high school friend when I was passing through my hometown. Got pissed drunk and picked up a smoking hot nurse. We went at it like rabbits all night. She and I wrapped around each other like pretzels. I woke up the next morning on my buddy's sofa with her, and I didn't even know her name. My buddy was married and thought that it was fucking awesome. His wife was pissed that he allowed it to happen though, and he got divorced shortly after. Still don't know what her name was. See, now that's a missed opportunity. Maybe it wasn't a relationship, but y'all could have had a hell of a friends with benefits situation. Had a threesome with myself, a woman, and 2 men. I had 2 dudes in me at once, and it was quite the experience. Like my grandma always says, you show me a good spit roast, and I'll show you a woman not complaining about the dishes. In high school in the early 2000s, I came out as gay. At that time, I was the only out gay guy at school. Some guys didn't believe it and asked me to prove it by giving them some down south action. I did, and they enjoyed it. After a while, they wanted it again, so I asked them to give me 10 euros each for it. I spent the last 2 years of high school practicing my mouth game on many guys for 10 euros each. Came out as gay and entrepreneurial. Wow, you must have been good to get so much repeat business. If you're good at something, never do it for free. I cheated on my cheating girlfriend, then banged said girlfriend, and then her mom. for over like 72 hours altogether. I went for deranged and fulfilled it. Grandma was already dead, or I'd have kept going. Wow, I did not anticipate this much interest in my story. Thank you. Yes, this did actually happen some years ago, and I appreciate the suggestion that I should have rubbed one out at the cemetery for Granny. But life is full of regrets, though, and that can just be another one. Dear God, what the fuck did I just read? I, female, had a rotation in my early 20s, 2 casual work friends with benefits, and enter a third coworker rebounding from a recent breakup. Then an old high school flame that lived an hour away that would come back to town regularly to do laundry at his parents' or whatever. Between all of them, I was getting it at least every other day. Enter the drama. Coworker 1 says we should grab lunch one day, instead of going to my place on our break like normal, and tells me that there's a bit of an epidemic going around work. Coworker 1 I knew was sleeping with at least 2 other coworkers besides me, and coworker 2 I also knew was sleeping with at least 2 other coworkers besides me. Yeah, apparently half the restaurant had chlamydia, and when I went to the free clinic, I definitely had it too. Restaurant life is wild sometimes. What restaurants are these people working at? My restaurant experience consisted of cleaning bloody toilets and broken glass while the servers took their 7th smoke break of the night. And all the workplace couples were very much not screwing anyone but each other. In the early days with my girlfriend, I had invited her to stay the weekend at my uni house, which I shared with 4 housemates. For 48 hours, we did not leave the house and barely left my room. It was just wild, noisy action. Just eat takeout and Netflix on repeat for 48 hours. Housemates never said a word. I came to find out the poor girl who stayed in the room next to me was a deeply religious girl whose faith group preaches abstinence. Her prayers would be interrupted by the sounds of my girlfriend moaning like a tigress. Those were the best 48 hours of my entire goddamn life. Held a house party in the small village in Wiltshire that I lived in back in the late 90s. I was seeing a nurse at the time, and she came over on the morning of the party to let me know that she couldn't make it, and that she felt the relationship wasn't right for her. She was coming out of a bad divorce. But she gave me a farewell bang, so it wasn't all bad news. A few hours later, I got a text from one of her friends saying that she was sorry to hear the news and that she's around if I wanted a shoulder to cry on. I told her I was doing a beer run into town to collect some booze and stuff for the party, and if she's in, we can have a quick coffee. Long story short, shag number 2 down the range. Headed back to the village, stocked up with beer and party food, and was unloading the car when my boss's daughter drove past. He lived around the corner from me. She pulled in, helped me unload my stuff, and ended up staying a few hours as the party got going. We had a bit of previous history, so inevitably, shag number 3 occurred once the mood relaxed. So the party kicks off. It is now 11 p.m. Shag number 3 left the party as she had an early start the next day, and I was feeling pretty damn tired and needed to freshen up. So I went upstairs, threw myself quickly into the shower, and yeah, one of the bored wives from the village decided she needed some spice, so offered to dry me off, which turned into shag number 4 of that day. I look back on it with fondness, but deep down, I knew I was a proper slag. When I was dating my wife, we worked together for a while, and I was her boss. We had just started doing it, and one day I had to go over to our off-site storage unit to drop off and pick up some tapes. I did need to show my wife where everything was, so I thought she should come with. We ended up doing it in an indoor self-storage unit with the door just cracked open for light. It was hot and sweaty. Hot, sweaty, and dusty. We celebrated 10 years 2 days ago. I let myself get picked up by a guy at a language exchange event. We had a few drinks, then he walked me back to his flat. Did some things in the shower, screwed, and stayed the night. He left early the next morning, leaving me there at his flat, not knowing any of his flatmates. So I quietly got dressed. Couldn't find one of my socks, sneaked out of the flat, then did the walk of shame all the way back into town and took the train home, missing one sock on one foot. Then after a really quick shower, I got back on the train to get out of town to get to work, now with 2 socks. May sound relatively normal, but I spent a lot of time that day evaluating my life choices. I used to work in the produce department of a grocery store. My girlfriend at the time would sometimes visit me at my work. The boss wasn't working this particular day, so we went into the cooler and got to it on top of the vegetables that we sell to customers. Yep, straight out of the movie Ted, but it really happened. And yes, I was considerate enough to finish in her mouth instead of on the produce. And for those who might ask, yes, I finished while she was giving me down south action, and yes, she kept going. It was really the most sanitary disposal of fluids that could have happened if you think about it. Your girlfriend literally got it from farm to table. It doesn't get any fresher. I was out bar hopping with this guy I liked and our friends when my old high school crush texted me that he was in the same area partying. I left the group to use the bathroom and went around the corner to get with my high school crush in his car on the side of the bar he was at. I said see you later and went back to the first group. Ended up with the first guy for 8 years. Terrible and toxic relationship to say the least. I just like this thought process. Damn, the girl I like's been in the bathroom for like 40 minutes and now she's back and she's super sweaty. I think she's gonna be the one. And then dating for the next 8 years. I went at it in the bathroom with a random girl that I'd met 15 minutes earlier. It was a men's bathroom, which had 5 urinals and a toilet separated by a dividing wall that you could peek over or under from the urinals. While we were going at it, like 20 different dudes cheered us on because she couldn't keep quiet. I don't think anybody saw us, but you could sure as hell hear everything. I went to a swingers party with my girlfriend. Naked people everywhere. Every room of the house. There was a mattress in the main room where all the appetizers were. So I sat there and ate some fruit while I watched some woman pulling a train. It was pretty funny. I just looked over at my girlfriend and said, when someone asks how my weekend was, I'm going to tell them that I was watching a girl get railed by different men while I ate strawberries. And they're gonna think I'm joking. Also, one of the older women there offered to give me some down south action. She even said she'd take her teeth out, and I was just like, what the hell? I mean, I considered it for a second, and my girlfriend was cheering me on, but I was already spent at that point. It was a great time, though, and was just something fun that we'd do once in a while. Ex-wife and I had split recently. I was seeing a new girl, and she was jealous. We smashed, I went home, and got with the new chick too. It was just too good of an opportunity to pass up, to be honest. This went on for a couple more weeks, with a third chick in the mix at one point too. Gradually, it all resolved itself into great unhappiness. I've been with the third girl coming up on 8 years now. I had this pair of brothers that used to string me along all the time. I was only good enough for them at house parties, in the dark, and away from people. I'm ashamed to say that I was in love with both, but I highly doubt they knew about each other. Come one night, where one took me to the park and pushed my head down, so I went down south on him, swallowed, and I went off hoping he'd fall in love with me. Then his brother came and just pulled me somewhere and shoved his tongue down my throat. I was so sick of them just using me at this point that I pushed him away and said, "So how does your brother taste?" The end. Went to a Dave & Buster's with a high school crush. We hadn't seen each other in years, but the attraction was incredible. In the parking lot, we hugged and then kissed, and I felt he was excited. At the end, I got in my car to leave, and I put the window down to talk to him. Of course, this provided the perfect opportunity for him to put his Johnson in my face, and so I undid his pants and gave him some down south action through my open car window. He was very vocal, and when it was my turn, we put the window up, got in the back seat, and he put up my legs as he ate me. People were walking by, but you can't be discreet really in that position. We didn't do anything more because we didn't have protection, so he got himself off while eating me and then opened the door to let his baby batter hit the ground. I was quite the harlot in my heyday, so lots of instances of hussy and heat behavior like this. I've got a couple. The first one is when I was living with my best friend at the time. Her older brother lived in the room just across from me. He was hot, but he had a baby mama. I asked him if he could take me to work one morning, and next thing you know, I was in the driver's seat with my ass bouncing off the steering wheel. This became a nightly thing, and it was amazing. Everyone knew, too, except maybe the baby mama. The other instance was after I was married. I showed up to my husband's work in nothing but a blanket to cover me. Asked him to come outside for lunch, and boy did he eat. Last one I'll mention was when I was in line to book a flight. Guy was fine as hell. We ran to the bathrooms, and it was a great time. I fell asleep naked in bed in a food coma with several plates of waffles that my girlfriend had made me. When I woke up, I finished the rest, and fell asleep again. I'd like to say this was a low point, but I'd be lying. I'd do that again in a heartbeat. I got with a guy from America that I met on Omegle. I'm from Germany. I used to browse Omegle just for sexting. And one day, I met a guy that was into all the same things that I was. And he didn't even ask for my snap or anything else to prove that I'm a real woman. But since I loved his way of writing, I gave him my kick. We texted non-stop, then became friends. We talked on Discord, shared pics. Then I booked my very first flight a few weeks later, and we spent 10 days messing around each and every day. Best vacation ever. Gay guy here. I went through a hoe phase after a breakup at one point. I had a guy come over to get with specifically because he was more endowed than my ex, and I wanted to feel that. I had a great time. Didn't finish, but I was fine with that. After he left, I went on Grindr to thank him for a good time, and had a random profile message me that was a mile away, with zero context, saying, "Hey, want to get some down south action to completion in my entryway?" And I thought, you know what? Yes. Yes, I do. So, no less than 20 minutes later, with Dude One's load still in me, I drove to a stranger's house to get some down south action right by his front door. After that, I went home, and literally that same night, made plans for the next night with a different dude to come over the next day to hook up. That was either right before or after I went out of town for a week, and had some sort of interaction with 6 guys in 5 days. 7 times total. One dude came over twice. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun, but I'm so lucky I didn't get any diseases. If I were to do it all again, there's no way I wouldn't be more cautious. It worked out though. I decided that sort of activity was too much work and just wanted a friend with benefits. Met some single closeted dude who wanted the same. And fell in love. Years later, and we're married, closing on a house. And I love to remind him that he ruined my hoe phase. Many years ago, I had just been dumped and was feeling terrible. I had to travel to another city to visit an embassy and get a visa. I didn't know anyone in the city, but my brother had some friends living there and arranged for me to stay with them. Everyone in the house I was staying in had plans for the night. They invited me to come with them, but I wasn't feeling up to it and just wanted to get a frozen pizza and sit on the sofa for the night. The housemates left me alone, and I went to the nearest supermarket to buy myself a pizza and some beer. In the aisles of the supermarket, I noticed 2 girls looking at me and whispering to each other, but didn't think much of it until I left the supermarket and they were waiting outside for me. They were both French, and only one of them spoke English. She asked my name, and chastised me for buying frozen pizza when there were so many better options for pizza. But I wasn't in the mood for flirting, so I tried to make my excuses and get back to the house. But they insisted on coming with me. The one who spoke English kept asking which of the 2 of them I thought was prettier, but I refused to choose. We got to the door of the house, and I said goodbye, and they invited me to go get drinks and better pizza with them. But I said no thank you and went inside. I cooked and ate the pizza, drank my beer, and decided just to go to bed and hope I felt better in the morning. I can't have slept for more than an hour when I was woken up by both the doorbell and someone knocking on the door of the house. As I got close to the door, I heard the 2 French girls' voices calling my name. It was the 2 French girls, and they told me they were upset that I wouldn't tell them which one was prettier and that I had to choose now. Again, I refused, telling them that they were both very beautiful and I couldn't choose. The one who spoke English said, "Well, in that case, you'll have to get with both of us." So I spent the night in bed with the 2 French girls. It was a great night, and it made me feel much better about being dumped, and frankly, much more optimistic about my future as a singleton. Okay, now we jump into the rapid fire segment for stories too short to make a full intro out of, but too good to be left out. Let's hop in. I accidentally made eye contact with a coworker while I was eating a banana. Got with 2 sisters in the same bed on the same day without either of them knowing about the other. Spent the night with and later married my professor during university. Whoops. Gave some down south action to 2 brothers at the same time. That's definitely up there for me. 3 different guys, 24 hours, no shower. Going at it in public. Did it with 4 men in the woods without learning any of their names. 3 people, where I was tied to a beam. Ate half a tub of ice cream in one sitting. So guys, that's it for today. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and comment down below your story, because I'd love to do a video on them in the future at some point. With that said, I'm ReddList. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.